welcome to another episode of Conversations with Matthew and Sarah. How are you, my love?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am doing pretty well myself, and yeah, it is cold in Dallas. Not as cold as it is in other places, but nonetheless, it is cold. So we are nice and comfortable inside, and wanted to talk about something really interesting, which is our brains. And not necessarily the physical composition of them. We are not doctors. We are not psychiatrists. So I'm just putting that disclaimer out there. But we are just going to be talking about anecdotal stuff that we go through ourselves. And hopefully it will be something that someone can relate to and might even be helpful, or we'll get some feedback that will be helpful to us. So would you like to start, Matthew?
But yeah, I mean, just going through it, we was talking about, me on the podcast and ways that we were doing the podcast and how we would like to go. And I was explaining to Sarah how it's hard for me, and I'm sure some people have that issue, where it's hard for me to make my mind think, I don't know, the lack of a better word, to think quickly when it comes to things happening, because my mind keeps going back to that we are doing a podcast. And I can't quite think of anything else about that. I was diagnosed a few years ago with autism, very, very, very high functioning. But still, I have, looking back over my life, I've had issues in my life that I can't get past certain things in my mind. I just, for lack of a better word, call it shut down. My mind just shuts down, and it doesn't want to go any further. And that happens sometimes on the podcast, to where I don't know if it's too many things come at me and I just freeze. I just stop. I don't know. Can't explain it unless you've ever experienced it. And then sometimes my brain will go too fast to where I'm not in control of the thoughts and everything. Like, for instance, we'll be having this conversation here, me and Sarah, but I'll be thinking about what we're going to do after the podcast or tomorrow. And then I'm literally thinking of 4 or 5 different things at the same time. And then I'll come back to this conversation. So just stuff like that I'm working through. So my question is, does anybody else have those issues? I know I've had them my whole life. So I've always, I think I told Sarah earlier, I always learned how to deal with them wrong growing up, because you're not, especially a child of the 80s like I was. You wasn't taught that in elementary school and things. But so I just had to learn how to cope with this on my own. And a lot of it now is packaged under ADD, attention deficit disorder, or ADHD. Doctors have said that I have some of that things, stuff like that. But I'm always, I've always frowned upon calling it that, because I can keep attention for certain things, But so I don't know. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Got anything to add?
No, I mean, I really appreciate you opening up about this. Like you mentioned, this was a conversation that started because in the last podcast episode, we kind of ended a little abruptly because you had mentioned that I guess you were shutting down, and so this was the reason why, and we thought it would be a good idea to put it out there. I guess I can tell you guys about what I've gone through with my brain. Also a child of the 80s. Mental health was not something that was talked about a lot, definitely not in my Hispanic culture as well. And so I didn't get any diagnosis until I was an adult, and I was diagnosed in my early 20s with something called BPD, so borderline personality disorder. And it's been quite the roller coaster of a journey. I've had a lot of instances of instability, and I've even had moments where I was institutionalized. And so I definitely know what it's like to go through a struggle where it seems like your brain is working against you. I definitely felt like my brain has been trying to kill me my whole life. The way that I was able to, and I know we've talked about different things, different mechanisms and strategies that we use to really gain control of our brains so that they don't control us. In my case, a lot of it had to do with learning how to make healthy decisions. Before that, we discussed in a previous episode healing from trauma. So, really healing from that stuff, getting rid of all those thorns in my side. That was the beginning of then learning how to make healthy decisions and do them consistently, not being somebody that was, because back in the day I was really being driven by trauma and unresolved issues, just kind of, I don't know, being comfortable in the drama, being comfortable in the toxicity, almost like, because comfort zones are not always healthy zones. We know this. So the fact that there was a big chunk of my life where a comfort zone involved a toxic behavior or zone or whatever environment. So kind of getting rid of that and then learning and just kind of architecting the type of life that would be conducive to peace, to tranquility. I don't allow anything in my universe that brings me any type of undue stress. I always say I love my mother to death. Anybody knows that. If my mother were a toxic person, she would not be living with me, period. And it's not because I don't love her. It's frankly because I don't have the sanity to be able to deal with that. So I would probably be paying somebody else to to take care of her if she were a toxic person, but she would definitely not be with me. So I'm just grateful that my mom is an asset to my life. And now the way that I deal with it, being a Christian helps me as well. I like to be in prayer. I like to be in God's word. I get a lot of relief from knowing that I can put my burden on Jesus Christ and I don't have to carry it. That definitely disarms my brain. As my brain in the past would want to get into overthinking and overanalysis, paralysis and all that. And so Christianity has really helped me because I've been able to fully surrender. And that's the whole practice of surrendering a lot of times happens on a second by second basis. But yeah, so any like techniques or anything that you've had to go through that has helped you manage?
I know it sounds crazy, but to me, Legos have always helped me, especially if my brain just gets too crazy. I just always like to see it and build a Legos. You look around our apartment here, there's Legos things.
They're very cute.
So I've always just liked to do Legos. To me, I just open it, it just helps my brain just focus on that. I got a task, I'm doing this. But I just always try to push myself. A couple years ago, I was in a totally different place. And it was right before I was diagnosed, and I knew, I always just thought I was different. And when I told people, especially people that had known me most of my life, they were always like, "Oh yeah, we can see that." But most of mine is I can get into what most people would call a rut. I can get into doing the same thing every day. I want to do it. I like to go to bed at the same time. Again, last night we talked about that. We were sitting here watching the football game. It was after 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock's my bedtime. So as soon as the game was over, I turned the TV off. Like, let's go to bed, because it was like 10:08. Because in my mind, I try to not do that, but 10 o'clock's the bedtime. So I literally get nervous. It's like I get to where I got to be in bed by 10. Got to be in bed by 10. I like to be up by no later than 8. And I don't know. It's hard to explain to somebody that's never felt that way. But I try to push myself. I would eat the same thing every morning. I would eat the same thing every morning for breakfast, for lunch, and for supper. I could eat the same thing every day. I used to do that. I think I ate oatmeal for 3 to 4 years. But now I try to push myself to do, to try different things. When I was little, I never tried different things. I always wanted to do the same thing. But and I'm trying to help people like that, because I've always wanted to talk about this, especially with adults. A lot of the things that we like to do is, one, we like to watch the same TV shows, same movies. That is something that's very big. What I talked to my therapist about, because we don't like spontaneity. We don't like that coming out of the blue. So we love how we know things are going to end. So I've literally, I know me and you watched a TV show that I loved, Chuck. I probably watch that once or twice a year. Because I know
it's a great show.
It is a great show.
Chuck is a great show. Highly recommend it. Shout out to the makers of Chuck and the actors.
That was a great show. But I watched that one. The old sitcoms, things like that. But I've always liked to watch things that I've seen, because you know how that's going to end. But now that I've gotten older, I like to push and try to watch other things. But I don't know. It's just I'm no therapist, but I'm just trying to help people. But if you see things like that, if you get nervous, if things are different, or I've always, a lot of people call it introverts. We've laughed about that. I always have an extra introvert. But people don't understand it, but I could have been happy, I always say that, thanks to God, but I could have been happy alone for the rest of my life. I'm glad I'm not, but, I would have been okay. I would have, a lot of people are like, oh, you can't be alone.
But you know what's really interesting about that? Because I've met other people like that. And I remember I met someone one time in the military that used to say the same thing, that he could be playing video games forever without any company, and that was just like his thing. And you know what I mean, I guess to each their own. I used to think that I was good by myself. I went through like different spurts in my life. Back in my early 20s, I felt like I couldn't be alone, but then I was surrounded by toxic people in a toxic environment. Then by the time I was able to be healthy, then it was like, oh, I would much rather be alone, because I realized that a lot of the world is toxic and unhealthy, right? Yeah. So it was a bit of a journey to find some healthy balance there, and also get out into the world and socialize with people in a way that felt kind of normal, if you would. I guess what I'm trying to say is, back in 2022, in early 2022, I had decided that I was going to form some sort of social circle. I was going to meet people. So I went to Meetup. I had spent 2021 on a sabbatical, if you will, completely away, just kind of reading the word, being with my mom, doing all types of studies, whatever, going to church, and then going to a 12-step program. So I would meet people there, but it was never like a real social setting until 2022. And when I first went to an event, a Meetup event, I'll tell you guys, I was nervous, because I was like, okay, I have no idea what I'm going to be like. I know that I can be quirky, I can be weird, I can be, I think I'm an acquired taste to a lot of people, which is fine. But I just had no idea how I would be in a completely stranger type of environment. Well, I thrived, and these people like me, and I think a lot of people find it hard to believe that I'm not an extrovert, because I tend to be social. So I'm grateful for that. But I'll be honest, for me, I'm not trying to say, people that say that they enjoy being alone, that's great. For me, it has to come in phases. Like, I will be fine alone, but then after a while, I need to be surrounded by, humanity, human touch, human whatever, right? A hug or whatever. I remember that COVID was tolerable because my mom and I were together. My heart goes out to so many people that were by themselves, working remote, and that isolation, that loneliness. I mean, we heard about stats going up with alcoholism and all types of stuff. And so I just wonder, even if you can be alone and you would be happy being alone, is that even healthy for the human condition?
I don't think it's healthy.
Yeah. So,
but I'm just saying, to people like me, we think I go to work. Because when I moved down here last year, and I worked at a job. It's literally been a year ago. And until me and you went out on our first date in August, I had went out twice in 8 months. Not with another person, just with friends from work. But I always had an excuse or something. But to us, we do go out. We go to work.
Okay.
I mean, every day I was going out. I would talk to everybody there, go back home. But weekends and stuff, and everybody's like, don't you need to go out, with your friends or everything? I do. I see them every day at work. But most of the time we have friends that are coworkers. We don't make friends, because I can't tell you the last time that I've had a friend that wasn't a coworker. In Wyoming, I had 2 or 3 friends. They were coworkers. I don't talk to them any longer. Here at Creation, I had 2 or 3 friends that were coworkers. Now I don't talk to them anymore.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I'm not. It's just the way we are. I mean, I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to push myself. That's what we talked about in a couple episodes ago. I'm trying to push myself, but it's just I never, But I know we always talk about that. My daughter, she really thought of it different because she's known me, for a long time. But when I met you, it was totally different.
Totally different. I've got to tell you guys, when Matthew and I met, all this description that he's been given about, I'm awkward with people. I get to a point where I shut down. I experienced 0% of that. When we met, I mean, we clicked right from the beginning. I would have thought that he was an extrovert. I would have thought, there was just no way. And it wasn't until that first time we went back to Louisville Bible Church, LBC, our church, And later, afterward, we were invited to stay behind for a lunch. So we went. And we were sitting with who I call the first lady, the pastor's wife. I just call the first lady because I enjoy that. So we were sitting with the first lady, and the first lady was asking Matthew questions, very just like, just regular questions.
She was grilling them like she was Walter Cronkite.
Well, no, she was being very kind, and she was just trying to make you feel welcome, but without realizing that you were actually starting to feel uncomfortable. And that was our first time. That was the first time Matthew and I were together in a social setting, and I saw it. I actually saw it, and it got to a point where it became really weird because somebody made a joke about bears, and I don't know what we were talking about. No, we were talking about Georgia. We're talking about Georgia, and then like everything being real country there, being really empty or something. And then I don't know how a bear came into the conversation, but basically we were talking about being chased by bears, and Matthew made it seem like he would just leave me while the bear is chasing. And then he ends up in church, guys. Okay, we are Christian fundamentalists. He ends up saying, oh, well, survival of the fittest. So now we have Charles Darwin in the picture. And it's just like, what is it? Like, I honestly felt like I was sitting with a different person. I'd never seen that side of Matthew in my life. And when we left, we had a lot of conversation about it. And I was like, moving forward, you can feel free to send me a text message and be like, look, this questioning is making me uncomfortable. I'd rather leave, and we can go. But that was the first time that I had ever seen that kind of awkwardness type of thing that he talks about. But yeah, it's very... it's interesting. And by the way, I think that you're doing great. I think that this podcast is a great start, talking about things that make us uncomfortable. I mean, that's what helped heal me. I've told you guys that I used to blog, and I blogged about things that were very uncomfortable. I was probably looking crazy to a lot of people. It is what it is. It was part of my process. Talking about it and being very raw and unfiltered is what helped me to heal. So I'm not saying you have to do that, my love. I was a nutcase, and it is what it is. You're certainly not that. You may be, of course, I mean this respectfully, you may be crazy, but not in the way that I was crazy, right?
Good crazy. We're both good crazy.
Yeah, we'll go with good crazy.
But I'll try to explain it, and I've tried to, because I've been trying to explain it, because, I was diagnosed at 40, 41, 42. It's like the reason we feel uncomfortable with conversations is because we don't know how they should go. We only go by memory, by learning how there is no natural feeling to how a conversation should go. To me, I'm not going to say us, because I don't know each person with this, but from the research I've done and how I've lived my whole life, is that a conversation is foreign to us. It is literally like speaking a different language to people. But yeah, we can talk to people. We have a cadence with people because we picked that up through me 44 years of talking to people. But we still don't understand it. We don't know the pauses, when to pause, when to stop. Sometimes I told Sarah, I can catch myself. I'll just leave a conversation when I'm done saying what I have to say. I'm done. I'm like,
the other person's still talking.
Yeah, I'm done. I did that at work the other day. Somebody was talking about football, and they asked me if I like the Georgia Bulldogs. I said yes. I said, who do you like? He said something. He stopped for a second, so I turned around and walked off, but he just had his back to me. He kept talking, and I turned around a little awkward, and I was halfway across the office like, oh, you still talking? Because, we don't know that cadence of like the conversation. Yeah, it's just we don't pick those up. So it makes us feel uncomfortable because we don't understand it.
But I will say that we did great. I think you did great in that dinner. By the way, guys, for those of you that know, I had mentioned in an earlier podcast that I was going to reach out to my friend, the one that reaches out to me, and I wasn't reciprocating. Well, we ended up going to dinner with her and her boyfriend and us, and that was a great time. That was a great time. You were funny. Everybody was talking, so it didn't seem. So it just seems like it depends on the situation.
It's if I get nervous. I mean, like I said, I've learned in 40-something years of how to have a conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I start getting nervous, my brain just starts flickering, and that's why I have a hard time with this, because the whole time I'm realizing that we are being recorded. So it's always in my mind. You're being recorded. You're being recorded. Think about what you say. You're being recorded. So it's constantly, taking up 25% of my brain capacity, let's say. But yeah, if I'm in a conversation, I can talk. But I did catch myself a few times. And that's something that I do also, is after every conversation I'll replay it in my head, and I always try to get better. I don't know, maybe I am a robot. I don't know. I'm looking through my programming, trying to get better. But I did catch myself, cut off the gentleman a few times. I would interrupt him in things because he wasn't answering the question like I wanted it to be answered, or he was, being a little slow with his answers. So, that's stuff that I've worked on. That case,
just kind of accepting the social cues, because even last night, and this is funny because you talked a few minutes ago about how like you turned off the football game. The reason why that's funny, guys, is because my mom and I were still out here watching it, and it's like, okay, I understand that you're sleepy, and I understand that the game's over, but you just like shut it off like you were the only one in the living room. It's like, okay, yeah, there's definitely opportunity when it comes to like social cues and kind of reading other people.
In my defense, I did offer to cut it off a couple minutes ago when it got 10 o'clock, though.
Well, yeah.
I said, game's over, because it was literally 20-something points, a minute and a half left. And you were like, no, the game's not over. I said, it's really over.
Yeah, but then it's like, no, it wasn't.
I was trying to.
Yeah, and then I didn't translate that to my mom, so it's
all good. I mean, that's stuff I got to work on. I mean, that comes with it. But yeah, I mean, it's just we wish it wasn't that way, or I wish it wasn't that way. But if you know anybody with autism, they used to call it Asperger's. Now they don't anymore. They call it high functioning autism. But anyway, if you know somebody with that, you can tell. A lot of times we won't say it, but we do. We get nervous, especially. I used to say this. It's like, and Sarah's very great at that. But we'll talk about, for instance, Saturday we're going to the mall, and say, okay, we're going to leave at 12. She's real great about that. But it's like we say we're going to leave at 12. We need to leave at 12. Mm-hmm. If we're not leaving at 12, and most with Asperger's, or excuse me, and now it's high functioning autism. They get that way, and they can overcome it. I mean, that ain't going to kill our day. We're not on that end of the autism spectrum where we're going to lay on the floor and have a fit. But that's with the high functioning. We can't overcome it, but it just makes us anxious, nervous. Like, I don't know. It's mm-hmm. Like me being up in the for y'all that don't know, I'm very scared of heights, but being up in the Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
It makes that feeling.
Yeah.
If we're late, or if we're not on time, or if I'm in a conversation and it does, there's some pauses and things that I don't understand. Or sometimes, I don't read social cues very well either.
Well, yeah, we were talking about the social cues being an opportunity.
But anyway, that's me.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you think about this being recorded, whereas I don't. And it reminds me, I don't know why I'm thinking about the Kardashians of all people, but I did see a clip one time of someone asking, I think it was Courtney, how do you guys deal with so many cameras in your face all day? And she said, well, you get to a point where you just forget about them and you just live your life. And that's how I feel about this podcast. Like, the same type of conversation I'm having right now being recorded is the same thing that I'll have with me not being recorded. You can turn it on. I will have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm just going to get into a subject and I'm going to continue to talk about it. I'm going to continue to see where it goes, where it flows organically. It does not it doesn't even matter to my mind that I'm being recorded or not. I 100% don't care. So it's just kind of one of those things where, another one of the things about opposites attracting, right?
That's true.
But I hope that you feel good about having talked about this.
I do.
think it's a good thing, and I think that a lot of people can relate. And I think this is a great thing. It's educational. When we talk about mental health, of course, we know about the stigma. It's been destigmatized a lot. Mm-hmm. And then we've gotten to, in some parts of the fringes, you get to the other extreme where it's being glorified, right? You see these clips of TikTokers making believe they have all types of Tourette syndrome and all this ridiculousness. Do people abuse the mental health system? Yes. Do people go to psychiatrists and make believe they're crazy so they can get some sort of drug because they're addicts? Yes. All these things happen. What we're saying is that that's obviously not what's happening here. We're going through what we're going through anecdotally, and we just wanted to share with the world. I think one thing that I do want to talk about briefly in connection to mental health is how I'm going through a process of letting go of my sleeping pills, my sleeping pills that are also considered antipsychotics. It's the drug Seroquel. And guys, I've been taking this drug for over 15 years. And in the 15-year period, there have been moments where I stopped and then I went back. But most of the time, I've been taking it pretty consistently. I have wanted to stop taking it this time around because I feel like it is hurting me more than helping me. The whole feeling of like there's a concrete block on my head every time I wake up in the morning and it's so hard to get up. I think it's very much connected to the Seroquel. So I've decided to eliminate it. And guess what I did the last few days? I let it go cold turkey. Not a smart idea. Not a smart idea at all. You should wean off of any psychiatric medication. And those are the exact words of my mom's doctor. So it's not like I'm making this up. However, because I've done this in the past, I had gone off cold turkey and experienced the only repercussion I experienced was not being able to sleep. I was like, okay, fine. It'll be the same thing now. I'll probably have some trouble for a few days and then I'll be fine. Well, let me tell you, I was not fine. The years do not pass in vain. I am not in my mid-20s anymore. I am not in my 30s anymore. I left this medication cold turkey. I went through all types of nausea. I went through all types of like lightheadedness. I was like going through a strange type of fatigue that didn't even make sense. Like, this doesn't even feel like a typical tiredness. This just feels so weird. Throwing up. I did that for 2 days and then decided to be like, all right, I'm going to do the smart thing and wean off this thing little by little. But it was just crazy. So I ended up taking half of it last night, and that was a whole lot better. I've been better today. I haven't been feeling like I want to throw up or anything. But yeah, it's no joke. You know, this thing is no joke. I know there's also groups of people out there. I've heard about them that don't believe mental illness is real, and I can get where they're coming from, especially in the face of a lot of people abusing the system. What I can say is that I'm just really grateful for the healing of emotional wounds. I'm grateful for therapy. I'm grateful for writing. I'm grateful for vulnerability and finding people that I can open up to. Brene Brown said this really well. She said that when you share your shame story, it's a privilege for somebody else to hear it. You know, like we should, if somebody's sharing that, it's like, I should be like, wow, thank you for the privilege of even hearing you share that, your shame story, your vulnerability, because that without those things, there is no connection. There is no real bonding. There is no real progress. And so I just want to say in front of the whole world that I'm very proud of you, my love. Aww. I know that talking about this does not come easy for you. However, I know that this is real progress for you. And my prayer is that it be helpful for other people.
And me too. I mean, because it is hard. I mean, it's been a blessing. You know, I always say it's been a blessing. My brain is a blessing. I can remember most of what I ever read, hear, or see. That's good. Sometimes, you know, it's good for lively conversation sometimes. I can remember these little anecdotes, like, for instance, this morning about a German word that I remember from something I've read. You know, it just comes back, things like that. You can just pick it up on, or I can remember I always call it useless facts or information. That's a great part, and it helps me with my job. My job is to see things like that, and my brain, the way it works, is perfect for what I do for a living. But, you know, it's also against you. But, you know, that's with everybody. You know, I do think, like you said, this world, everybody wants to, I used to say it, everybody wants to have something. And most people do. I mean, most people do have something. Maybe it's not a brain. Maybe it's, you know, bad legs, bad knees. I mean, I look at what your mother has to go through. Yeah. What you have to go through, what I have to go. Everybody's dealing with something. Yeah. You know, I mean, everybody. So my thing is let's just figure out how to do better together. And not everybody, you know, just because people, always remember, just because people don't talk or people are short or people don't understand, that doesn't mean they don't want to.
Yeah.
Sometimes they try. I mean, I've done.
No, and I also want to say, just thinking about, you know, being on the other side, like when you were mentioning talking to my friend's boyfriend and how like maybe he wasn't responding as quick as, you know, that's another thing, like being on the other end. Like I don't know him, but I do know people that have described to me before, like, oh, maybe they get a little bit nervous talking, or maybe they just kind of want to get their thoughts all the way together before expressing them, or maybe I've heard of people that have gone through like stuttering issues when they were younger, so they tend to, kind of slow down. And again, not saying that any of this is going on with my friend's boyfriend. I don't know, but it did make me think about how, like, to your point, everyone is going through something. In this household, we have Matthew with the Asperger, me with the BPD. We have my mother who goes through chronic pain. Thankfully, she doesn't go through any insanity stuff, but she goes through chronic pain to levels that are very heartbreaking sometimes. But she is just such a champion. Her attitude, the way she carries herself, she never complains. She's never whiny. I would not be able to, and I have big tattoos, guys. So, hey, that's another thing for you. Like, I have big tattoos. So you would think I have a high tolerance for pain? No. When I see everything that my mom's going through with the chronic, debilitating arthritis, the knee replacements, the way that it's eating up her arm, her back, and everything, and still see her attitude, it's just really inspirational. And we all need each other. Yep. And I think maybe our household is like a microcosm. I don't know. I don't want to sound cheesy, but it is what it is. Like, it's a microcosm of the world. We have 3 different personalities that are going through 3 different, very different things, but we all need each other. We all need each other, and really exercising that compassion and understanding one another and connecting on a human level. I think human soul to soul level makes it possible to, really, keep the world moving. Why don't I want to say keep the world moving? I feel like I'm about to sing "We Are the World" or something.
I could buy the world a coat to teach.
I mean,
we better get off here.
Yeah, it's about that time.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.